Welcome, ladies and gentlemen of the media. I would like to welcome you to this weekly press conference. I have with me our presidential candidate, Mr. Kemra Ramjatan, Treasurer and NEC member, Mr. Dominic Gaskin, Professor Shamir Ali, who is a member of the AFC New York, New Jersey body. He's also chair of the U.S. Government International Outreach Committee, and our prime ministerial candidate, Mrs. Sheila Holder. So without further ado, I hand you over to Mr. Ramjatan.
Thanks. There are several issues that we will be discussing this afternoon. I want to deal with the last one. I'm going to just shift this one. The AFC's response to the flooding in the Rupununi will be what I will deal with this afternoon. The Alliance for Change was amazed to learn that, contrary to media reports, no consignment of food has reached the people of the Rupununi who are inundated by flood water. This was emphatically reported to us by AFC National Executive Member and Member of Parliament, David Patterson, who has been stranded in the Rupununi since last week. In the context of the current unprecedented floods, it should be noted that the Rupununi is some 300 feet above sea level and usually experiences one annual rainy season from May to September. With the road to Lethem being virtually the lifeline for essential products such as food, fuel, and so on, to reach the Rupununi, government's failure to maintain the road during the long 7-month dry season is indicative of their incompetence. It was only last week that the administration approved in the National Assembly 2 supplementary financial papers totaling over $6 billion, while 5 months ago they approved the largest budget ever in this country. For the year, no maintenance work has been done on the road to Lethem. 2 weeks ago, after the rainy season started, and Rupununi residents began complaining about the condition of the road, the administration announced that they would be sending contractors to repair the road to the tune of $110 million. The AFC condemns this incompetence and wanton waste of taxpayers' money, since no road maintenance work could be done during rainy season. Whatever is attempted will be washed away. Already, the road is underwater and several bridges have broken away because of the flood and government's tardiness. The AFC notes that food, fuel, etc. that would normally get to the Rupununi by road will be disrupted until the dry season begins in October. In the meantime, efforts are being made by the AFC to acquire water purification and rehydration tablets in preparation for the after effects of the flood and the prevention of waterborne diseases. Thank you. No, you go to you.
Good afternoon. I'll be dealing with recent remarks made by Finance Minister Ashley Singh. The Alliance for Change has noted the recent address by Finance Minister Ashley Singh, reported in the Guyana Chronicle on May 29, 2011, under the heading, Finance Minister calls for urgent transformation of Caribbean economies. Minister Singh made the call while addressing the 41st annual meeting of the Board of Governors of the Caribbean Development Bank in Port of Spain, Trinidad, where he led the Guyana's delegation to the meeting. In his address, the minister makes the claim that Guyana's relatively robust macroeconomic performance reflects the sustaining of a disciplined policy stand. He goes on to state that Guyana's development pathway continues to be founded on the preservation of macroeconomic stability, underpinned by, among other things, fiscal prudence and debt sustainability. It is, however, not at all certain that Guyana's macroeconomic stability is the result of conscious policy by the government. We do believe that the Bank of Guyana, which ought to function independent of government control, could have contributed to the stability by use of moral suasion in monetary policy targeting the main traders of foreign exchange, and that such moral suasion could have resulted in the stability of the exchange rate since 2004. However, the seeming success is more likely to have been engendered by the nature of our capital inflows, namely remittances, which are not susceptible to sudden reversal and destabilizing outflows such as those occurring during the Asian, Mexican, and Argentinian financial crises of the 90s. In fact, the fact that in Guyana we have not experienced such devastating capital outflows in spite of our large current account deficit is due mainly to a lack of short-term inflows such as investments in Guyana Stock Exchange and financial markets. In other words, our underdeveloped financial sector has fortuitously helped us to avoid the consequences of an alarmingly high current account deficit in our balance of payments. Structural transformation cannot occur under this type of stability. We cannot continue to have an underdeveloped financial system and then boast about the stability that defaults from such underdevelopment. We cannot continue to have our economy muddling through and government politicians giving glowing reports on its performance. The minister claims 5 years of successive positive growth. The AFC believes that this economic growth is very low for a commodity-based economy in an era of commodity boom. The price of gold, our largest export commodity, responsible for almost 40% of our export earnings, has increased by over 25% for each of the last 2 years and has almost tripled in the last 5 years. This alone should have caused phenomenal economic growth, rather than the tepid growth recorded. Guyana has missed the great expansions of the 1990s and the 2000s, and yet again, we appear to be muddling through with respect to growth. Commodity prices may very well decline once the United States increases interest rates and the US dollar starts to strengthen once more. Where will that leave us? There is no evidence to suggest that our economy is changing in structure. No major manufacturing entity the size of, say, Banks DIH or DDL has been created over the last 2 decades. There cannot be structural change without some core of large manufacturing businesses responsible for exporting. The economy cannot continue to be dependent mainly on small subsistence businesses. Small businesses must be backed up by large ones so that the overall economy can generate income growth. The AFC therefore wants an urgent transformation of Guyana's economy and will provide the necessary leadership to bring this about. Thank you.
Mr. Chairperson, members of the press corps, good afternoon. I'm here to give a statement on presidential candidate Kemraj Ramjatan's visit to the U.S. State Department. Our chairman, Dr. Rohan Samar, emergency room physician of the New York, New Jersey AFC chapter, was scheduled to make this presentation. He has had an emergency with his mom and sickness in New York, so he's on the Caribbean Airlines 230 flight back to New York. The statement reads as follows. Presidential candidate Kemraj Ramjatan responded to a request by high-ranking officials of the U.S. State Department for a meeting. He was accompanied on Friday, June the 3rd, by an AFC New York, New Jersey chapter team, which included Dr. Sumar and Mr. Ron Alert and myself. Among the important issues discussed and the information shared with the DOS officials were 2011 national election issues and the predictions of possible violence, providing U.S. support for inter-ethnic dialogue in Guyana, the desirability of GECOM being proactive in providing opportunity for the upliftment of ID cards at the place of poll, and possible participation of elections observer groups U.S. aid exploring ways of supporting NGOs in educating the electorate. Also, while in Washington, D.C., Mr. Ramjitan appeared on Carib Vision Television, while the AFC chapter there organized a well-attended meet and greet public speaking event that was well received by the diaspora. Last Saturday in New Jersey City, a large successful fundraising event that focused on good governance and economic transformation was organized by the AFC New York, New Jersey chapter and was attended by such notable personalities as Professors Asquith Rose, Teran Kemraj, Dr. Vincent Adams, Dr. Ramaya, and yours truly. Last Sunday, June the 5th, another successful meet and greet event was held for the Orlando business community and civil society, where several important investment contacts were made. Finally, it is my pleasure to present to the AFC 400 books by such internationally renowned authors as Nelson Mandela, Mahatma Gandhi Ji, Sister Teresa, General Colin Powell, and President Barack Hussein Obama.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Let's pass it on.
The Alliance for Change wishes to acknowledge that the month of June commemorates the 63rd anniversary of the shooting of sugar workers at Elmo. And in recognition of this significant occasion, we are pleased to present to you a little later some of the sugar workers who are associated with our party. Their decision was to protest home. The AFC believes that this anniversary is a very suitable time to reflect on the sustained impoverishment of sugar workers. Such reflection should produce a tangible program for the betterment of the lot of our sugar workers. On Thursday, the 22nd of April, the year 1948, some 1,200 field workers drawn from Plantation and Moore, Nonpareil, Lusignan, Monrepo, Le Bon Intention, Weizlust, and Ogle took strike action. Their decision was to protest the arbitrary imposition of the cut and load system in place of the cut and drop system. Also, workers were aggrieved by the inadequacy of a wages agreement signed between the Sugar Producers Association, the Employees Organization, and the Manpower Citizens Association, being the recognized bargaining agent of the workers. Workers also sought to secure the recognition of the union of their choice, GIW, in which they sought to replace the MBCA. The strike was being placed in the same year in which the urban workers of the Transport and Harvest Department were experiencing several difficulties, but had in one determined effort been able to rid themselves of the expatriate dictator Colonel Thier. This occurred 1 year after the bauxite workers at Mackenzie defied the coercive powers of the state, and through their resoluteness and self-sacrifice had been able to give the expatriate giant Alcan to recognize the right to exist as human beings and not as slaves of the 18th century. Their action ought to be seen as an act of protest against a deeply exploitative and extracting production system. More specifically, it must be recalled that between years 1939 and 1949, the cost of living index had moved from 95 to 247, but the basic wage had remained fixed except for a number of production and war bonuses. Essentially, these were marginal increases, unsatisfactory to the workers. This was increased to 15%. In fact, in the year 1940, the bonus was 10%. And this was increased to 15% in the year 1944. Such increases were granted reluctantly and in the face of much agitation from the working class. It was alleged, however, that any such increases was almost invariably accompanied by a disproportionate increase in the retail price of sugar on the domestic market. On the 16th of June 1948, fatal suppressive violence would be deployed against the striking sugar workers at Plantation Enmore. The report of the Enmore Inquiry Commission subsequently made the point, and I quote, "We are, however, of the opinion that the evidence has established that after the first few shots, there was firing which went beyond the requirement of the situation, with the result that Kuran, notably, and some others, received shots when in actual flight." End of quotation. The Alliance for Change reiterates its call for a commission of inquiry into living standards in the sugar industry, the findings of which will serve as a blueprint for an amelioration of a living wage for Guyanese sugar workers. The Alliance for Change submits that meaningful worker remuneration and inclusion is indispensable to any turnaround plan that can be adopted. This present cooperative Grace Support leadership has demonstrated a manifested ability to grasp this point. The Alliance for Change believes that such a program will have to be part of a comprehensive sugar reform plan, which the party has drafted in consultation with an exhaustive team of experts. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I'll invite some sugar workers, namely Mr. Hemraj Kedra, Bert Cummins, and Albert Hercules, who is really the leader of the team. And we'll ask them to make a comment on this significant occasion. You want to come forward?
All right, you can stand just above there.
Just come.
So that I could capture.
Yeah.
Yes, go ahead.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the media and the other person here. I am Albert Hercules from Wales Sugar Estate, and I work in the estate for 12 or 13 years or more. On my behalf, on the situation on the estate seems now is because of poor representation from, as the Prime Minister candidate just said, the representation from GAU, who was admitted at that time of the struggle to represent the workers. Prior to 1992, there were vibrant representation for the workers in the sugar industry. After 1992, when the PPP became the government of the day, the representation declines because the chairman of the union then, Mr. Kumachan, also is a member of parliament, so poor representation is done for the sugar industry, and that causes the state of the sugar industry today. Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon. I am Hemraj Kedra, working at the Wales Estate. My comment is that I is Scott Kane, and I work 3-day cotton load, 4-day cotton drop, and I salary just $10,000, $11,000 a week for a week. So I want to know if that money could really provide a family. That's my comment.
Thank you very much.
So, I'm working at number 15 Gang Factory. This time, walking around with the estate and the factory break a lot of people's mind. Your earning is so small that you cannot mind 3 children. I'm father of 3, cannot mind 3 children. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Thank you very much for your comments. We'll now invite your questions. You follow the established protocol.
A civic group recently announced that it will be lobbying for the PPP to win Region 10 at the upcoming polls. None of your party can comment on whether you feel that you can maintain, you're confident you can maintain your support in the region and build on it or strengthen your support in the region.
Sure, we in the Alliance for Change have been doing our work in all the regions, and it is obviously as a result of that that the People's Progressive Party now wants to set up civic organization to help it to win that region. As you know, we had won that seat by some, I think, 24 votes. And the declaration that was made by the regional GCOM officer was that the PPP had won by 11 votes. We took the matter to court, as you know, because the statement of polls for all Region 10's polling stations indicated that we had so won that region. Of course, the technicality that the marshal did not serve his affidavit in time, which has nothing to do with the Alliance for Change, caused us literally to have the case dismissed by Chief Justice Ian Chan. We feel that because of the right message, because of our projects and plans and programs for Region 10, we will do very well there. And we are asking community leaders to become members, and they have been. We are doing our work through recreational activities like domino competitions, and we want to set up a basketball competition. And the fact that we are on the ground indicating to them, we recently had a demonstration at the hospital, as you know, a protest demonstration, and a number of other activities in which we are representing members of that region in their legal issues and sometimes social issues. We also recently went to Kokwani and Araraima, where we were very, very well received. As a result, in those two areas, we had beaten both the PNC and the PPP last elections. We have been going there, we have been sending our papers and so on, and we feel that we are going to do even better. So we don't fear. Yes, the PPP can do its work through its civic organizations, which it will pay plenty, because very many of the PPP leaders can't go there. So they're going to do what is called this behind the veil thing of sending civic organizations to go. But of course, the Lindeners are smarter than that to be beguiled by that.
And I just wanted to remind you of the reality in Linden, and in fact the entire Region 10, where this administration has denied them access to private television.
That's right.
If any Lindener would deduce from that discriminatory action that the government of the day is concerned with their welfare, well, I don't think you can get a more absurd situation than that. So what I wanted to say is that you have the administration who now must come to realize that their sins of commission are about to catch up with them. And so through a rearguard action, they're attempting to salvage what they can. But we have no fear that the civic group is likely to be successful. We're confident that they will fail in that.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I have another question. The Women and Gender Equality Commission held a press conference yesterday, and they basically registered a disappointment with all the political parties, including your own, who had met with them and failed to respond to the question as it relates to signing on the optical protocol for women. I don't know if somebody can provide some information as to why you did not address that issue when you met with them recently, because you said they were very disappointed.
And in fact, I led that delegation. I don't recall that we refused to sign on to the optimal protocol. What in fact we stated in terms of persuading more women to participate in the politics of the day, that as a commission interested in the welfare of women, they needed first of all to address the environment in which women have to operate politically. And in fact, the view was expressed that the environment had become so hostile and so uninviting and so discouraging that it was even a disincentive for men to become politically involved at this juncture. So in essence, what we were trying to direct to the Commission was the paramount issue from our perspective, which needed to be addressed in the first instance, rather than simply deal with the issue of numbers of women who each political party could persuade to go on the list. And as they had indicated also, the Constitution only deals with the matter of the number of women on the list, not the number of women who are selected to sit in the National Assembly. So that is in essence the reason why we took the position that we took. We're not going to be persuaded to fall into the trap of dealing with the numbers rather than the cogent issues.
Yes. Any other question?
I lastly would like to there's a select committee in Parliament currently asking for submissions from the public on the issue of legislation to criminalize HIV transmissions. I don't know if your party can share what your views are on the issue, whether you believe that there should be legislation to criminalize transmissions, deliberate transmissions.
Yeah, in fact, I recall that motion was piloted in the National Assembly by the Gap-Roar representative, Errol Franklin, and we indeed supported it. It is a criminal act for a person who is knowingly infected with the HIV virus to deliberately infect another. It's a criminal offense. And if tightening up the law is what is required to dissuade persons within our jurisdiction from behaving in that terrible manner, so be it.
Oh, that's Mr.
That's the man there.
I've heard that name, very famous name.
Well, let me just also make mention, since you seem not to have any questions at this point, that we have brought today a number of the books, and we must congratulate Professor Shamir for on this project that we have in Guyana to distribute books within certain communities of youth. And he has brought over 400 volumes of Barack Obama's famous The Audacity of Hope, and Mahatma Gandhi and Nelson Mandela, Sister Teresa, and even Colin Powell. We have brought a couple here to distribute to some of the more prominent and present at AFC's press conferences reporters. So there's where Chabral might get excluded, right? It is a real good gesture because on the last graduation of Buxton's graduates, because as you know, annually Buxton would have a normal graduation ceremony for all its students from UG, those that graduated with good CXC results and so on. I had made a presentation of Nelson Mandela's long journey to freedom, and they had indicated that that was a wonderful gift and award. And so I have indicated to our New York, New Jersey group, please send books, recent books and books of wisdom for distribution by the Alliance for Change. And Professor Shamir came very, very grandly, if I may say so, to arrange 400 volumes, which we brought down in our suitcases recently from our Department of State trip. So here they are. I would want, because you are largely the man that has been here all along, I would ask that you make the presentation. That is our good friend Amar Pandey We have 6 books. Out of the 400 that I indicated, that 6 prominent reporters here, we're going to get 1 each. You can then exchange it as you prefer.
Share and rotate.
Share and rotate. Yeah.
Okay. Based on our records of regular attendance, we would like to state the names of the news agencies which we would giving priority to. So these are the names: Stabro, Kaichor, Capital News, NCN, and TVG.
TVG. Okay, that's 5. But I will make the presentation of the last one. And because we have 6. I will ask if Professor Shamir, you can just go there and hand it over to, let's say, the Starbuck News reporter. Could you kindly come forward? Okay, this is the big one. This is Nelson Mandela.
It is my pleasure to present to you an author for a man from all seasons. Hopefully the words will be an inspiration to you. Please share them. Knowledge is universal and global. We're all in it together. Peace and love all.
Thank you.
Crystal, if you could come forward. You didn't have the first option, but you have the second.
Second option.
I already read the first option.
Oh, you already? Great. So that's...
You know we should be standing here, right?